Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. If you've been following the channel, you know that we got rid of the spare tire on the back of the Jeep some time ago, primarily because I didn't like the setup with the weight it put on the hinges in the back. Now, off-roading, a few times we've gone without the spare tire on, and it kind of feels like you're naked, if you know what I mean. I always talk about being as prepared as you can be on the trail, and without spare tire, we're just not that prepared. There's always something in the back of my head I didn't like about it, so decided to go ahead and put the spare tire back on the Jeep. We got rid of the spare tire delete that I bought from Terraflex. It's just plastic anyway. It was fairly cheap, so just mounted the tire up again to the factory mounting brackets, and I've got the reinforcement plate for the 37-inch tire on as well. I've done a previous video on that. If you want to go back, watch that video as well. I'll link it up above maybe. The only problem is I used to have the license plate mounted back here. The problem with that is I didn't want to put the bracket back on and mount it here because it's a perfect step up to get to the roof rack when you load it, right? So I needed some sort of a relocation bracket in order to mount the license plate somewhere that's visible on the Jeep and somewhere that's not going to be in the way of us loading up the cargo rack. So I took to Amazon and I found probably one of the cheapest that I could, just to make it work for now. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to install that, and I will warn you right off the bat that if you buy this kit, the same one that I will put down below in the description, if you have a aftermarket size tire, it will not work with the supplied hardware. But you can pick up a couple pieces of hardware at your local hardware store and it will completely work 100%. So let's get into installing this and I'll tell you a little bit more about it and the pros and cons. Okay, so let's dive right into the install. First things first with this mounting bracket. So I have already installed this. I installed it about a week ago, and I took it back off again just to show you that you will have to modify it to a degree if you are running a aftermarket size tire. It just simply won't work with what you get in the packaging. Very easy to put together. The whole idea is pretty simple, and I'll show you the bracket here. Some sort of powder coated metal. It also does have connections for your light if you want to use that, which I will not, and I'll get into that a little bit further. And what they've provided you with is you're going to have your 3 nuts that secure your tire on the back. This kit gives you 2 different adapters, just like this. Okay, they're going to be simply like this, and it allows you to thread this on to your lug nuts, both top ones, and then you thread in your screw into there, and that's what you're going to thread this into, and that's what's going to hold it. Now, the screws they provide you with are very small, and that's because it's meant for obviously a stock size tire, and it will work just fine with a stock size tire. Will not work with this setup. This mounts on here, right? And it's going to go after your lug nuts. Well, unfortunately, this is going to bottom out on your rim because the screws are way too short. So knowing that, I went to the hardware store. I got the same thread pattern screws to thread in to here once that's threaded on. Okay, and it now puts it out 3.5 inches further, allowing me to easily mount this exactly where it is, and it works just fine. Now you're also going to have to get a nut for the back, and I'll show you that in a second here once we get it all put on, but it's going to allow you to mount it just perfectly right there. The only thing I do not like about this kit, and I'll show you right here, okay, I'm just going to do it loosely for now, and I'm going to try to not make this such a long video, guys, because it's not really a complicated process whatsoever. It's very straightforward to put this together. Obviously, you're going to remove your 2 top existing lug nuts, and you're going to replace it with these. And these will thread right down all the way in, and you can get a socket on there and tighten it down, right? But now, if you have a stock size spare tire, then you can go ahead and use the hardware that you got with the kit. Don't forget to put your nut on. You're going to want to put your nut on now if you're using aftermarket tires. You can use you can even use a wing nut if you really wanted to. And you're going to want to thread that down in tight. Okay guys, so now that you've tightened these down, that's going to allow you to either get your bolt that came with the kit, if you have, again, OEM wheels and rims. That's going to allow you to mount up to here. Again, if you have aftermarket wheels and rims, you are going to need to get hardware that is longer, substantially longer. This is 3.5 inches. So now we have our mounting hardware. What you're going to do is you're going to go up inside here and put the hardware through here, okay? So that comes down on that back plate. What you don't want to do is come down through the front and mount like that. And you might think, well, that's going to be easier that way, right? Well, it's not, because when you mount your license plate on here, that's now going to push out the bottom of your license plate. I don't want that. I don't think you want that either, so don't do that. Run it through the bottom here, and then you're ready to go. So let's go ahead and we'll install that now, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So thread your nut on. If you're using aftermarket, thread that right down. Not quite tight, but close. Now you can go ahead and thread that bolt in. Just thread it in loose right now until you make finer adjustments. I'm going to get the other bolt here and do the same thing. Okay, once again, same bolt. And we're going to run up through the inside, same as the other one. Perfect, just like that. And you're going to make sure, again, that nut's on there for your aftermarket application. And then you're going to thread that in. Now I'll go ahead and tighten that down a little bit so you kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like when we're done. We got that snugged up for now. You can go ahead and tighten it up a little bit more, depending on what hardware you have. It's easy to access through these access holes here, so you can go ahead and crank that down. You want to put a wrench on the back side of this. I have thought about maybe using wing nuts with a locking washer in behind, because it would make it a little bit easier to take off. That's going to work for now. But at this point, now you can go ahead and put your license plate on, and they do give you provided hardware for that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that hardware. It is going to be a Allen key. Might be like a number 4, but it's going to be easy, simple. The nut in behind is one of those serrated bite washers, so it is going to lock in and bite down to that, so you don't have to worry about that coming loose. It's going to be as simple as taking your license plate, guys. Put your nut on the back side and line up your license plate just like that. Thread in your screw. You're just going to repeat that all 4 times. That's one end, and I'll speed this up so you guys don't have to get annoyed by watching this. Okay, so now that you've got that on finger tight, you can go ahead and use either hand tools or your favorite power tool to go ahead and crank those down. Now don't crank them too tight if you have a license plate cover on like mine, or you will break it. You don't need a wrench in behind or anything. It's going to lock itself in place. There, perfect. So that's going to be the install for the bracket itself. So guys, the problem with this light is, now correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody's watching this and sees a better way to do it than I see here, please let me know in the comments below. But as it is already, in order to remove your spare tire, if you need it, you have to go ahead and take this license plate. You then have to go ahead and take the bracket itself off, and then take your spare tire off. That being said, if this light is wired up in through here somehow, without running it some ridiculous way, or putting in maybe a connector that you could disconnect, which I think would be your only option, how would you possibly wire this and take your spare tire off? I'm gonna think you're gonna have to wire in a connector of some sort. And for me, I'm not running the light anyway, so that's not important. But just something for you guys to keep in mind if you do think about purchasing this, is you will have to wire a connector in there if you're going to use the light. I'm probably going to, it's got little Allen screws on here. I'm probably just going to take the light off and not run it anyway, because I don't need it sitting up here if I'm not going to use it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take that off in the future. It is secure. Like I said, I have been running it for about a week now, but I would definitely go ahead and buy some lock washers for those bolts just to make sure everything stays. I haven't had an issue with anything backing out or whatnot, but you definitely don't want that bouncing around off-road, and then next thing you know, you've lost your license plate bracket. Will this work on your JL or on most Jeeps for that matter? Yes, it will. It'll work 100%. It's going to be flawless if you have the stock size tire. If you do not have the stock size tire, you will have to get a little bit creative and do it a different way, but it will work. And again, I'm trying to keep this as short as possible because it's not a difficult install. I just wanted to give you more of a heads up on how to do this if you don't have a stock tire. I think the quality is good. I think the steel's strong. It's probably one of the cheapest brackets on Amazon that I came across. There were similar ones that were probably designed a little bit better, probably $40 more. I think this ran me about $85, I want to say. It's still not cheap, so if you guys want to do something kind of budget, this is the way to go. Again, guys, thanks so much for watching. We do have a bunch of videos lined up coming up now that the weather's getting a little bit nicer. The last week or so of weather has been terrible around here. It's like we're trying to get into spring and summer, and then it's like we go right back into winter again. So, but yeah, we've got some control arms we want to do on the Jeep. We're currently waiting on parts to come in for some front lower control arms. I've got a rear track bar I'm waiting on coming in. Adjustable track bar so that we can center the Jeep a little bit on the axles a little bit more, because it is off to one side. And yeah, we've got some off-roading videos coming up. So guys, if you like the content, please down below click that like and subscribe, and as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.